Okay, we're continuing with the Maharal. Netivot Olam. It's the second chapter of the Netivot on the Torah, Netivot Torah. And again, he's going through a whole list of Agadata, Gemuras, and different things talking about the nature of Torah and those that what's necessary to be able to absorb the Torah and be makabel the Torah and to reflect the Torah and to teach the Torah and all these things. It's going into an interesting discussion, the prerequisites involved. So as we said before, the main thing about the Torah, the overwhelming quality of the Torah is it is seichel. It deals with the intellect. It's a spiritual thing. It's not tied to gashmis. The Torah itself is not gashmis. It's not physical. So he calls it the seichel elyon. And so the question is, how can we prepare ourselves to be makabel the Torah? How can we absorb it? See, if it's such a high thing, it's so beyond us, it's so otherworldly. I mean, despite the fact that it deals with practical subjects, but the Torah itself, as an essence in itself, what is our connection with it? We can think that it's so beyond us that we don't have any way of integrating that into our own lives. So what he emphasizes here is, and there's a tremendous number of sources to back this up, is the idea that the main preparation for being able to be makabel Torah is the midah of anuva. Anuva is humility. He's going to mention a few different aspects of anuva, what it really means. He has his own separate nesiv on anuva alone. So the subject of the midah of anuva itself is the subject itself. But here he's talking in his relationship to the Torah. So he says that the Olam, the person himself, is a Baal Guf. He has a physical body, and therefore he is dealing with boundaries. Everything in Gashmias has boundaries. So he has to be able. Again, so that's why it's a challenge to be able to cling to and to connect oneself to the Torah, because against the Torah is something totally secretless. So the only way to get close to the Torah, even though we can't possibly absorb of it as much of it as we would like, but at least the way to get as close as we can is to try to attain the midah of anova to the greatest extent that we can. So anova, in other words, because by anova we are being mashpil, we're bringing down the physical and the limited part of ourselves. He's going to explain here what the problem with gasis ruach, with arrogance is, and why that's a problem in terms of being able to observe the Torah. So he says that this is Omer Rav Chanina bar Idi lama nimshli divrei Torah lamayim. Why are divrei Torah compared to water? The Yechsiv Hevit kol tzomei lechi lamayim. So there's a pusik that says that anyone who's thirsty should go to the water. Mamayim manichin mukam gevoya v'holchin mukam numach af divrei Torah. That just as water leaves a high place and flows to a lower place, so the same thing with Torah. Torah goes from a high place and goes to a lower place. So the Torah cannot be miskayim, it can't be sustained, except in a person that he says daito shvela, that his intellect, his intelligence, his knowledge, or whatever he's mashpil, he's bringing it down to a lower place. He doesn't allow himself to get to inflate his ego or whatever on the basis of how much he knows. So Rabbi Shaya, Lama Nimshal Divrei Torah begimel mashkim. So he says that he compares it to three different liquids: mayim, yayin, and chulav. It's water, wine, and milk. And he brings the same pasuk. So it was a rather long thing here, but the point is that he's says so these three types of liquids are rather fragile, rather delicate, and he says that they can only be sustained, to keep in a very simple vessel. Something that's not an expensive vessel. Expensive vessel like kesef and zuhav, gold and silver. He says it's not going to last in such a vessel. So it should be in the pocha shebekalim, the simplest of vessels. So he brings a whole story here about the daughter of the Kesar. Let's see which Kesar it was. That she was talking to Rabbi Bashia ben Hanania. And she asked him, as a noble woman, whatever, would ask something like this. He says, how if you have such great wisdom, then why was it put into such a ugly keli, ugly vessel? This is saying it's not a great looking person. So why did it? Why did Hashem choose to put it in such an ugly vessel? So he said back to her. So he asked her, "What vessel does your father, or the emperor, what does he put his wine into?" So she said, "Simple vessel, something, earthenware or something like that. It keeps better, or whatever." So he says, so he said back to her, so you would think such a important person would choose a more expensive vessel. He should be putting it in silver and gold to keep it. So he said, "No, this sounds like a good idea." So it's appropriate, yeah. So he says, so she said to her father to put it. She put it herself into these vessels. So sure enough, it's spoiled. So her father says to her, "Why did you put in these expensive vessels? That's not how you keep wine." So she says, "Well, this rabbi told me to do it." So he goes to the rabbi and he says, "Why did you tell her to do that? It doesn't make any sense." So he says back to her that what was his answer actually? So he says, so like what? So basically, he said what she told to me, I told back to her. In other words, she was saying that how can you keep wisdom in such an ugly vessel, body or whatever? So I was saying to her that just as you see that you can only that the expensive liquid can only be held in a simple vessel. So in the same sense, the Torah can only be held in a simple body. There's a person that's not going to become gaivadik or uppity about his physical appearance or something like that. He's not into his body as something, because the Torah is a spiritual thing and has to be held in a person of a spiritual quality, but it doesn't the simplicity of the gashmius that he has within himself is actually a benefit to being able to hold the Torah, because he's not taken up with his physical appearance and with his or to feel arrogant about himself in any way. So that's actually going to keep the Torah to a better advantage than somebody who's more has a more physical. That's not across the board. I mean, there are plenty of chachamim that were known to be very, very beautiful people, but physically also. But in this case, it does help. Yosef. Yeah, all of the office and all the Yemuas and everybody, they were all called. Yochanan was also said to be very, very handsome. But I'm saying that, in other words, it's certainly not something that is a deterrent or a problem. It doesn't get in the way of Torah, and in fact, it may have benefits in terms of not distracting a person with the physical. So then he goes on to say. He says that there are these, so it says that these three liquids we talk about, the three mashkin, are nifsulim behesach hadas. So in the same sense, divrei Torah is mishakim behesach hadas. So in other words, that if you don't think about them, if you put them away in a place, I guess, and you don't think about them, you're not constantly busy with them, they keep better. So the same thing also with in terms of the physical aspects for the Torah. The Torah, the less you think about yourself, the less you have yourself in mind, the more the Torah is going to be preserved. So he says that with this, so in terms of a nova, he's saying with the midah of a nova, it's possible to come to Torah. Without the midah of a nova, it's impossible to come to Torah. It's not possible. And we see that also with Moshe. Moshe was called the Onav Mikol Udam. He was the most humble of all people. And he was the one that was makabel the Torah. So obviously there's a tremendous connection. Rabbi Akiva says, in Rabbi Akiva it says, in Perak Rabbi Akiva it says, because he says, I guess it's saying to Moshe Rabbeinu, because you put yourself, on a lower level, so that's why the Torah is called according to your name. So this is Zichri Toiras Moshe Avdi. The Torah is called Toiras Moshe because he made so little of himself. He was on such a extreme level of a nova, not being anything about himself at all. So he says that the whole idea is that when you're talking about something with gaiva is basically limiting itself as something with midas, with midas meaning dimensions. If a thing is, the more a thing is physical, the more it's limited by having certain measures. So whenever a thing has a measure, it's being limited. That means it's not allowed to expand beyond those limitations. You're defining it in terms of specific borders. Whereas if something is ruchni, sichli, then it has unlimited. It's not. First of all, ruchnius is not toifus mukum, as we learned in another shir. It doesn't take up space, and also there is no limit to how far it can go because it can spread and spread and spread. So there's no. Whereas if a person is even so the paradox is that even if a person is gaivadik, meaning he holds the world in himself, he's full of himself and he's full of how great he is. The fact that he is even defining himself as being great means that he's giving himself a dimension. He's saying, this is my size, this is how big I am. Therefore, I can't expand beyond those borders. I'm so big and that's as far as I am. That's also, it goes back to the confrontation between Yaakov and Esav, when Esav said, Yesh li Rav, and Yaakov said, Yesh li Kol. Because if Esav, because of his gaiva, his grandeur and everything, so he was saying, I have a lot. So he's saying, that's a definition of an amount. Saying, I have a lot of stuff. And the person that has a lot of money can say, this is how much money I have. So it's a bounded amount of money. It might be the richest person in the world, but it still has a certain limited amount of money. As opposed to Yaakov said, Yesh li Kol, I have everything. So therefore, if I have the ruchni aspect, then there is no limit to it. Therefore, I have everything. Just saw there's this thing about this story about Bill Gates. That came out recently. He was talking about how when he was younger, before he became famous, and he needed a newspaper, and the newspaper seller gave him the newspaper for nothing. And then he gave a second newspaper for nothing. And later on, he wanted to pay this guy back for having done that favor. And he went to he found him, actually found the same newspaper seller. And he said he wanted to pay him back. And he said he didn't want the money back because he was able to pay him give it at that time. And Lamaisa comes out that he had more than Bill Gates, because Bill Gates wanted to give him something and he wasn't interested in accepting it. So therefore, he was even on a higher level than Bill Gates. Anyway, so the point is that by a nova of not holding much for yourself, then you can be bigger than the biggest person. But anyway, so he says here that again, this story. So it doesn't have those dimensions. So it says a mayim manichem gavoya v'holichem lemukim nukum. So the water leaves a high place and flows to the lower place, because water has no gvul. You notice the entropy that it spreads out. It doesn't have a specific dimension because it just flows. It fits the vessel that is put into, or it just is mispashet. It flows around. So therefore, it's not limited to a specific space and a specific shape. It doesn't have to deal with that. So the Torah is also like that. It flows to wherever it can. So another is this idea of the midas of a pshitis, it can't be divided up into things like just we talked about Hashem himself as being an actus apushit, that there's a simplicity to it. It's not a composite of other things. The Torah in itself, in its essence, is like that. It's an actus apushit. It's a simplicity to it that doesn't have any divisions, and you can't count it. It's not the midah dominion. You can't give it a particular amount. So he says that so he says also that these three, going back to the idea of the three liquids, says that they're protected or guarded or whatever in these in the simplest of kalim, of vessels, because they're even the smallest. They're changed with even the smallest. Or the smallest change will have an effect on them. Let's put it that way. So they have to be in something simple that it shouldn't change or influence the liquid itself. In other words, it's not. You have to find something that's not mashpia. It's not mashpia. It's not having an effect or an influence on let's say this, that the vessel itself does not have enough of character of its own that it's forcing its character on the liquid that it's containing. So in other words, if very often in many aspects of life where this is, if you take something that's very simple and doesn't have any taste or smell or even any particular character of its own, then it won't force that character on the thing that it's containing. It's transparent. It doesn't have a particular character. It doesn't have a taste of its own. So it's not going to put something on it. Whereas something that's very often something that's more expensive or more powerful or whatever. So its actual intrinsic value might be greater, like silver or gold or something, but it has a taste, it has a form, and it's something that it's going to foist on the material that it's enclosing. In the same sense, the Talmid Chacham can't inject himself into the learning. He has to, obviously he has his own perspective and he has his own mileage or whatever, but the more he forces his own personality on the Torah itself, the more it's not as pure of a way of giving it over, because he's not just giving over the Torah as it is, he's giving the Torah over through his particular lens or perspective, which means that he's affecting the outcome, what's coming out. He's supposed to be giving it over in the most...
Are there 70 interpretations of Torah, 70 ways of explaining the Torah?
Yeah, that's true, but it's not because he's into himself. He's not saying, I am the authority and I have this particular, approach that I'm, everything that I say is with this particular approach. He's just trying his best to give it over the best he can. So obviously it's going to come over, according to the shortage of his neshama, it's going to come over through his particular lens. But it's not like he's giving his style and his spin and his this and his that, and so you should notice him. He doesn't want to be noticed. He wants the Torah to be noticed, and he's just trying his best to give over what the Torah is, what he sees the Torah to be saying, but not because he's trying to to put himself into it like that. He should be recognized. There's a beautiful more in Ketzim Am Eru. It says Ka'arigas Rabbi Eliezer my deceive lechayav ka'arigas haboisim. It's from Shirim, I believe. So arigas haboisim is like a bundle of fragrant spices or whatever. So he says if a person makes himself like an aruga shehakol dashim ba. Aruga is just like something you plant, a certain arrangement of plants or whatever that a person is walking on top of. He's walking on it. So if a person puts himself in a position like everybody's walking over him, he's prepared to be walked upon. He doesn't hold himself to be higher than anybody else. So then this Torah is going to be able to spread through him. And also the idea of that, just as as a fragrant spice, it spreads into the air and it Again, this is pashtus. It just goes out into the air and spreads out. So that and also people enjoy it. They have a good smell from it. So in the same respect, the Talmud Chochem, that is just giving out Torah to be able to spread out, and also allow as a nova, so that he doesn't care if people walk in him or not. So then, first of all, people will like him more. He'll be better liked if he is another. People generally don't like arrogant people, so they're turned off from that. So the more simple and the more friendly and not holding a lot from himself, the more people are going to be makabel the Torah that he says, and there's also going to be with the sweetness. So that's going to get across to better people also better. So he's Maritza Elakol. Then he says in Perek Anoider, he brings a whole thing about the midbar. The Torah is compared to the midbar. He says, midbar matuna, nachaliel, bomos. So he says, Kevin she'oisa udem es atzma midbar. A person has to make himself hefker like a desert. And he says, then the Torah is given to him as a matuna, as a gift. Just like something that's hefker is basically a gift. It doesn't cost any money. It's given to him freely. So the same respect, the person who considers himself to be hefker. In other words, he's not holding himself to be a bal, something with something with value or whatever. He's just open for everyone. So that's so then Hashem is also going to give it to him as if just free, basically. It's something he doesn't have to work as hard for. It's something that's just given to him. It also says that the Torah was given with Eish and Maim, which Eish and Maim are also hefker. Then there's the idea that Hashem will raise him up. So the idea is, again, if a person approaches the Torah from the right way, so Hashem is going to lift them up to a higher level. But then, if they're on the higher level, then they become gaivadik about it, because they become more arrogant because they've reached this higher level of learning. So then it says that Hashem pushes them away forcefully, it doesn't even want to have anything to do with them, because they've use that higher level of Torah learning, which is also all from Hashem. The Torah itself is from Hashem, and his ability to understand is from Hashem, and the Torah is again given to him as matona. It's just a gift. So then, if he's going to hold himself to be get big-headed about it, then Hashem is going to cast him away. So that's why he has to again prepare himself to begin with, before he even approaches learning, to realize that he has to reach that level of humility, so that when he does achieve a certain level of learning, whatever, that it shouldn't allow it to take him away. And it's this idea that it's lo b'shemaim he, that lo b'me'ever leyam he. So the Rebbe says that it's not in the gasei haruach, that's lo b'shemaim. So the gasei haruach, the arrogant people are flying around in the heavens, and it's not like me'ever leyam he. It's not like the sachronim and tagurim. You don't find it in the merchants. People are running around. Running around busy with parnasa. So in the same respect, he says that there are three things about a person. A person has a seichel, the intelligence, he has the nefesh, and he has the guf. So if he's too involved with the other two, he's not going to have the one. So he's not going to have the seichel if he's too involved in the guf. So and also if the person is involved, as he says that the business people are so busy running around that they have no rest. So they're constantly in movement, and that also is disturbing their peace of mind. So they can't have so that affects their ability to concentrate their seichel. So it's like it's not independent. In other words, a person can't have everything. If their individuality or whatever, their being a person involves having these three aspects of the seichel and the guf and running around making parnasa, then it's inevitably one is going to affect the other. So that if the person is too far in one direction, it's going to pull him away from the other direction. So it's a question that's why a person has to, again, if a person is really an olive and he's not out to, to make a name for himself or to get recognition or whatever it is, then he's going to see what the real priorities are. Because usually if a person is driven to do, this is just my explanation kind of, but if a person is driven to build up his body or to build up his fame or to build up his income or whatever it is, and he's really focused or obsessed with that kind of a focus, then inevitably it means that his values are a problem. Because what does he really consider to be important? What are the priorities in his life? So once he understands what's the idea of anova? Anova means that I recognize that this thing is so much greater than me, that it's so much more all-encompassing, and it's really the point of everything. So I'm humbled by it because it's so great and I'm so small compared to what that is. So I realize that however much I'm going to put into it, it's never going to be enough. So how can I allow myself to put extra time and effort into some other aspect of my life which is not as essential? This is really, I would say, probably the most essential cheshbon nefesh that a person makes in approaching Torah. It's really, the ultimate, self-awareness and self-evaluation. What is important in my life? What is the priority in my life? Torah is the kind of thing which, however much time you spend on it, is never going to be enough. But if you realize how much that's worth and how much its lasting value it has, and how much it's your whole Olam Haba and it's all your Olam Haza, and it's telling you how to live the life that you have in this world, and besides giving you all that for the future, for the world to come, then everything else pales in comparison. And then once you realize that the more I put into these other things, if I'm putting extra time that's not really necessary into these other aspects of my life, when I could be spending that same time and effort in putting that into Torah instead, in terms of, which investment makes more sense. So at the same time, it's something that encompasses, and also the other problem is that the more you put into more Gashmiistic things, the more you become Gaividik from those things, because they are Gashmias. So if the more Gashmias I have, the more it pumps me up like I'm something, I'm a yesh, I'm a something. So it ends up that is pulling me down where the Torah is boosting me up. So, it's kind of a no-brainer to figure out where I should be putting my main priorities.
Yes, correct. I wanted to thank Reuven and Miriam Heshman for sponsoring this particular shir. And if you want to sponsor a specific class, please speak to me afterwards.